And welcome back into the Enrichment Sports Source. This segment of our show brought to you by Fast Frame. You know, it's Christmas, which means you may be looking for the perfect gift for the Vol fan in your life. And this great picture of Smokey with the football is tremendous. I know they sell a lot of these down there. Fast Frame, go in and check out any of their UT collection. They have painting after painting, print after print that you can get custom framed for your office, for your home, for your dad, your brother, your mom, your sister, whoever on your Christmas list. Fast Frame is the place to go, and check it out for Vol fans out there. All right. I want to quickly look back 1 year at some stuff. We're going to spend a little more time in the next segment on some stuff, so I want to race through this. We said 12 months ago on this show, on that whiteboard over there, we drew up something that we called the talent cliff, and I think we've got a screen grab of that. There it is from 12-9-12 last year. You see all those seniors and then the juniors. It was the old Price is Right cliffhanger. He's going right off the edge. We said after this year you're going to lose that many players. That 140 down there, that is the number of starts that you were going to lose. That's from a year ago. So add starts to that now. You're losing hundreds of starts in terms of history in these 2 years. And over there on the right was just who would go early that we wondered about. Now we found out, you're going to lose Tiny Richardson, and there's question about A.J. Johnson leaving from this team. But the point was, at the time, we said Butch Jones is going to have to come in here, recruit his rear end off, because it's going to be ugly in 2014. And that was before we even knew what the schedule was going to look like. Let's take a look at this. If we've got the schedule, I don't know if we do or not. Anyway, yeah, there we go. Utah State, 8-5. They lost the Mountain West Championship game last night. Arkansas State finished 7-5. Oklahoma, brutal. At Georgia, you got Florida, and I don't think they're going to be 4-8 again. You got Chattanooga of the FCS, and before you scoff at the FCS, remember Georgia Southern beat Florida. Then you got at Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, Vanderbilt. In terms of losing records, you got Florida and Kentucky.
Wow.
Then you got all this talent that's gone, so you're not going to have much depth next year. You're certainly not going to have experience. There's this thought that, okay, but you're going to have all these top signees. How'd that work for LSU's defense this year? It takes youth a little bit of time to grow up. Guys, we talked about it the last segment last week, just a tad. I don't see next year getting any better than this year. Anybody disagree with that? Do you see?
No, I see next year being worse than this year.
Like 4-8 worse?
No, not necessarily 4-8 worse, but I just
3-9.
Let me rephrase. I see next year being 5-7 again. I see it being kind of
worse.
but it's gonna feel worse because I think you're gonna go out. And this next year, there's going to come expectations of improvement based on what? And that's what my question. What will people who think it should be better in the second year, what are you going to base it on? You're going to have a younger offensive line.
Younger defensive line.
You're going to have a younger defensive line. I mean, you're going to get a little bit more experience in some places. You're still going to have depth issues. I think you'll see freshmen playing all over the place. Just cheer them on to hope that they look good as freshmen.
And how many times have we sit here and say, yeah, you may be better, but it may not necessarily reflect in the schedule? I think as tough as this year's schedule was, in looking at that schedule, I think it's even tougher in terms of going through it week by week.
I think that for Tennessee to be able to salvage next year, Jalen Hurd has to come in and be an absolute stud. He has to be a Todd Gurley type player. And one of the quarterbacks has to really emerge. Now, we've seen it happen. Nobody knew Nick Marshall would be that good. Zach Mettenberger made a pretty good leap from last year to this year. They got to have somebody, whether it's Riley Ferguson or Dobbs or somebody. If those two positions will elevate themselves, then they can, I think, get out of this with a pretty decent year. But other than that, it doesn't. I'm with Bob. It doesn't look very promising.
Does it get better next year? Or it looks about the same or worse?
About the same, but to just try to be a glass half full guy. I think your defense, your secondary could be better next year. I think your quarterback play will be better next year. Your receiver play will be better next year. So I see some areas that will be better next year, but maybe you need that just to keep you even.
One thing I will say about the quarterback play, not only do you have to have one guy that's good, you better have two. This year in the SEC, 11 of the 14 schools had to go to a backup starter at least once due to injury. Tennessee, one of those, of course. But a lot of schools had to go to three quarterbacks. Tennessee played three, not due to injury, but they played three. it's gotten to the point now in football that you better have depth all over and at quarterback, because quarterbacks in the SEC are getting beat up. Part of that probably because they're running so much spread and zone read stuff. All right, when we come back, we're going to play the lightning round. We're going to talk about Auburn in the BCS championship game. We'll talk about SEC defenses. Now they've declined this year, except for Tennessee's. Come on back.